So we've done simplifying rational expressions, and now we get into solving rational equations. Basically, very similar in the sense that you still have to find a common denominator. So I have my denominators here. I'm solving for x though this time. And I have my denominators and I need to find my common denominator. So between 6 and 18, the common denominator is 18. And then I also need to have this x plus 3 in that LCD because that's a whole nother expression. Okay? So it's going to be 18 times x plus 3. So what you're doing with it is I'm going to multiply every term by that least common denominator. And what happens is all of the denominators should cancel out. When I multiply this one, a lot of times I'll do it kind of right here and just do it off in the corner of it. What happens is that this x plus 3 will cancel out here. And then I just have 4 times 18. And 4 times 18 is 72. So those x plus 3's cancel out and I get 72. When I'm multiplying it to this one, the 6 will cancel out the 18, but it will make that a 3. 6 goes into 18 3 times. But the denominator will still cancel out. And then 5 times 3 is 15, and that's still times with x plus 3. And then when I do this last term, remember you got to do it to every term. The 18 cancels out completely, and I have 23 times x plus 3. And so at this point, you're just solving the equation. Now it's just a regular equation. You got to distribute and combine your like terms. So this becomes 8x. 72 minus 69 becomes 3. I still have to add that 45 to it, so that becomes 48. Divide by 8, and x is equal to 6. So when it says check your solution, what you're basically checking for is that it's not a restriction. So the only restriction I have here is from the denominators, x cannot equal 3. Because that's not one of my solutions is fine. You can still check to see if it's correct. 4 over 9, that plug in 6, that becomes 9. 4 over 9 plus 5 over 6 equals 23 over 18. And 8 over 18, get a common denominator. 15 over 15 adds to be 23 over 18. So on this next one, I need to find my common denominator. I need to factor this one. And it's going to factor into x plus 3 times x plus 5. So that means my LCD is going to be x plus 3 times x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply that to all 3 numerators and all 3 terms. And then I'm going to cancel out all the denominators. So this x plus 5 cancels out with this x plus 5. They both cancel out in this one, and here the x plus 3's cancel out. And then you're going to simplify it. So I have 2x times x plus 3, which becomes 2x squared plus 6x, minus, leave this in a parentheses unless you're changing the signs at that point, equals, and 3 times x plus 5, distribute there, 3x plus 15. And so to distribute this negative, that becomes a negative, this becomes a positive, this becomes a positive. And combine your like terms. 2x squared minus x squared becomes x squared. 6x plus x becomes 7x. Plus 10 equals 3x plus 15. Because it's a quadratic, I want to get everything on one side and have it equal 0. So I'm going to subtract 3x and subtract 15. And I have x squared. And I have x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. And to factor, it's going to be x plus 5 times x minus 1, which means x equals negative 5 and positive 1. Well, if I'm looking back at my least common denominator, this is where my restrictions will come from. All my denominators, x cannot equal negative 3 or negative 5. So since one of my solutions was negative 5, that one doesn't count. My only solution is x equals 1. All right, go ahead and pause it and try these three on your own. Find the least common denominator, multiply it to each term in order to eliminate all of the denominators, and then solve the equations. Pause it. Okay, so I have all the work here. I tried to separate it. This was number 1. I did different colors. The LCD is going to be 10 times x plus 3. When I multiplied that to the first one, the x plus 3 is canceled out, so 2 times 10 was 20. And the 2 canceled out with the 10 to become 5, so then I had 5 times 3 is 15, and I still needed to multiply with that x plus 3 there. And then the 10's canceled out here, and 19 times x plus 3, and the work to simplify it is there. Number 2, the least common denominator, when you factor them, the common factors were 3, 4, and 2. So the least common denominator between them was 12, and then n minus 1 times n plus 1. So I did that in red here. The 3 canceled out with the 12 to make this a 4. The 4 canceled out with the 3 to make, with the 12 to make that a 3, and the 2 and the 12 to make that a 6. And then I still had this n minus 1, so 4 times 7n was 28n, times the n minus 1. 3 times 5 was 15, that minus is still there, times the n plus 1. And then the 3n times 6 was 18n, times the n minus 1, and then simplified that. Now when I factored it, I got 3 over 2 and negative 1. But the negative 1 is a restriction because the n cannot equal positive 1 or negative 1 there. So the only solution should have been 3 over 2. And then the last one, the LCD, was p minus 2 times p plus 4. And you have, see the work here, the p minus 2 canceled out. So 1 times p plus 4, 2p plus 1. Both of them canceled out, so that didn't multiply with anything. And then the 2 times the p minus 2 here, because the p plus 4 is canceled out, and then simplified it to be 7 over 3. And that wasn't a restriction. The restrictions there were p could not equal 2 or negative 4. So 7 over 3 was good. All right, so I'm running out of some jokes here. I forget which ones I've given and which ones I haven't, but here's one for you. You might be able to get this one. What do you call a super pig who can climb up the side of a building? Spider Ham!